ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ನಿಮಿತ್ತ ನಮ್ಮ ತಿಂಗಳ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸಿದ್ದು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಳೆದ ತಿಂಗಳು ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಆಯ್ತು. ಇದು ಎರಡನೇ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ. ಮೊದಲನೇ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಇದಾಗಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಅದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಅನುಭವ ಗೊತ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ. ಅವರ ಬರಕ್ಕೆ ಒಪ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಮಾಡಿ ನನ್ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಅವರೇ ಹೇಳಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅದು ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಸೌಭಾಗ್ಯ ಯಾವುದು ಅಂತ ಅವರು ಅವರ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಕಳೆದ ತಿಂಗಳಾಯಿತು. ಸೊ ಅಂದಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಇವತ್ತಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರವಿಶಂಕರ್ ಅವರ ಪರಿಚಯವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಇಂದು ಮತ್ತೆ ವೆಂಕಟ್ ಅವರು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕರ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅನೇಕ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಯಾವ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಯಾವ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಯಾವ ಶ್ಲೋಕ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು.
ಏನು ಹೇಳಲೇಬೇಡಿ, ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಕೂಡ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಡಿ.
ಅದರ ಸಾಧನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಅವರು ನಿರಾಮಯದ ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಶಂಕರ ವೇದಾಂತ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಶಂಕರ ವೇದಾಂತ ಟೀಮ್ದು ಪರಮ ವೇದಾಂತ ಅದರದೊಂದು ಟೀಮ್ದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಕೂಡ ತಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಇವತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ ಬಯಸ್ತಾ ಪರಿಚಯವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ.
ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರುಭ್ಯೋ ನಮಃ. ಸರ್ವೇ ಭವಂತು ಸುಖಿನಃ, ಸರ್ವೇ ಸಂತು ನಿರಾಮಯ, ಸರ್ವೇ ಭದ್ರಾಣಿ ಪಶ್ಯಂತು ಮಾ ಕಶ್ಚಿತ್ ದುಃಖಭಾಗ್ ಭವೇತ್. ಓಂ ಶಾಂತಿ ಶಾಂತಿ ಶಾಂತಿ. ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರುಭ್ಯೋ ನಮಃ. ಈ ಸುಂದರ ಸಂಜೆಯ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರಿರುವ ಎಲ್ಲ ಯೋಗ ಬಂಧುಗಳಿಗೂ ಆಹ್ವಾನಿತರಿಗೂ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪೂರ್ವಕ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರಗಳೊಂದಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ ಮತ್ತು ನಿರಾಮಯ ಯೋಗಕುಟೀರಂ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯಿಂದ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಆದರದ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ನಿರಾಮಯ ಯೋಗಕುಟೀರಂ ಆಶ್ರಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಹಸ್ರಾರು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಯೋಗಾಭ್ಯಾಸ ತಮ್ಮ ಆರೋಗ್ಯವನ್ನು, ಮನಸ್ವಾಸ್ಥ್ಯವನ್ನು, ಸಂತೋಷವನ್ನು ಪಡೆದುಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥ ಸೇವಾ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಒಂದು ಭಾರತೀಯ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯ ಉನ್ನತ ವಿಚಾರಧಾರೆಯನ್ನ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ, ಸಾಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಕ ಹಾಗೂ ವೈಚಾರಿಕ ಸ್ತರಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ಜನರ ಬಳಿಗೆ ಕೊಂಡೊಯ್ಯುವ ಒಂದು ಸದುದ್ದೇಶದಿಂದ ರೂಪುಗೊಂಡಿರುವ ಒಂದು ಮಹೋನ್ನತ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ. ಎಂದು ಮಾಸದ ನೆನಪು ಇದು ನಮ್ಮ ಮಾಸಿಕ ಹಾಗೂ ಮಾಸದ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ. ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಕಳೆದ 15 ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಂದ ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ನಡೆದು ಬರುತ್ತಿರುವ ಒಂದು ಅಪೂರ್ವ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ. ಈ ಶೀರ್ಷಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ಸಾಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಕ, ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯಿಕ, ವೈಚಾರಿಕ ಹಾಗೂ ಆರೋಗ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಅನೇಕ ಸಮಾಜದ ಒಳಿತಿಗೆ ಅನುಕೂಲವಾಗುವಂತಹ ಹಲವಾರು ವಿಷಯಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನುರಿತ ಆಯಾ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದ ಪರಿಣಿತರಿಂದ, ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಚಿಂತಕರಿಂದ ಹಾಗೂ ಸಮಾಜ ಸೇವಕರಿಂದ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸಗಳನ್ನ ಆಯೋಜಿಸುತ್ತಾ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಈ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸ ಮಾಲಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂದಿನ ವಿಷಯ ರೆನನ್ಸಿಯೇಷನ್, ಅಂದರೆ ಪರಿತ್ಯಾಗ, ವೈರಾಗ್ಯ, ವಿರಕ್ತಿ ಎನ್ನುವುದು. ಭಗವದ್ಗೀತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ 18ನೆಯ ಅಧ್ಯಾಯದ ಮೊದಲ ಶ್ಲೋಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಅರ್ಜುನನು ಶ್ರೀಕೃಷ್ಣನನ್ನು ಈ ರೀತಿ ಕೇಳುತ್ತಾನೆ: ಸನ್ಯಾಸಸ್ಯ ಮಹಾಬಾಹೋ ತತ್ವಮಿಚ್ಛಾಮಿ ವೇದಿತು ತ್ಯಾಗಸ್ಯ ಚ ವೃಷಿಕೇಶ ಪೃಥಕ್ಕೇಶಿ ನಿಷೂದನ. ಎಂದರೆ ನಾನು ಸನ್ಯಾಸದ ಮತ್ತು ತ್ಯಾಗದ ತತ್ವವನ್ನು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆಯಾಗಿ ಅರಿಯಲು ಬಯಸುತ್ತೇನೆ ಎಂದು. ಈ ಪರಿತ್ಯಾಗದ ಅಂದರೆ ರೆನನ್ಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ವಿಷಯದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಅದರ ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯತೆಯ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೂಲಂಕುಷವಾಗಿ ತಿಳಿಸಿ ಕೊಡಲು ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಈ ಸಂಜೆ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರವಿಶಂಕರ್ ಅವರು. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರವಿಶಂಕರ್ ಅವರು ಹೊಸಬರೇನಲ್ಲ. ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ರೀತಿಯ ಅವರ ಅನುಭವಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಪರಿಚಯವಾದಂತೆ. ಅವರ ಸರಳ ಸುಸಂಸ್ಕೃತ ಅತ್ಯುನ್ನತ ವಾಕ್ಚಾತುರ್ಯವನ್ನು ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಅನೇಕ ಬಾರಿ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಅದು ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥ ಅವರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು, ರಥಸಪ್ತಮಿಯ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸೂರ್ಯನನ್ನು ತಿಳಿದುಕೊಳ್ಳುವ ವಿಷಯವಾಗಿರಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಹಿಂದೊಮ್ಮೆ ಕೇಳಿರುವ ಮೈಂಡ್ ಯುವರ್ ಮೈಂಡ್ ವಿಷಯವೇ ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು. ನಾಡಿನ ಪ್ರಖ್ಯಾತ ಆರ್ಥೋಪೆಡಿಕ್ ಸರ್ಜನ್ ಆಗಿರುವ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರವಿಶಂಕರ್ ಅವರು ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮ ನಿರಾಮಯ ಯೋಗದ ಪರಿವಾರದವರೇ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಹೀಗಾಗಿ ಅವರ ಪರಿಚಯ ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡುವುದು ನನಗೆ ಒಂದು ವಾಕ್ಯ ನೆನಪಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ತಿಳಿದಿರುವ ವಿಷಯವನ್ನೇ ನನಗೆ ತಿಳಿದಿದೆ ಏನೋ ಎಂದು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸೂರ್ಯನಿಗೆ ಟಾರ್ಚ್ ಬಿಡಬೇಡ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದೀವಿ. ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಈಗ ನಾನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋ ಕೆಲಸ ಅದೇನೆ. ಆದರೆ ಅವರ ಹೆಸರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ರವಿ ಎನ್ನುವುದಿದೆ, ಅದು ಸೂರ್ಯ ಎಂದು ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಬಂದೆವು. ಅತಿ ಚಿಕ್ಕಂದಿನಿಂದಲೇ ಪ್ರತಿಭಾನ್ವಿತ ವಿದ್ಯಾವಂತರಾಗಿ ಹಂತ ಹಂತವಾಗಿ ಮೇಲೇರಿ ಬಂದ ಅವರು ಅದ್ಭುತ ವೈದ್ಯರೂ ಆಗಿ ಖ್ಯಾತರಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಜನ ಮನ್ನಣೆಗೆ ಪಾತ್ರರಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಮಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಶ್ರೇಷ್ಠ ವೈದ್ಯರಾಗಿ ವೈದ್ಯಕೀಯ ನಿಯತಕಾಲಿಕೆಗಳ ಅಂಕಣಕಾರ, ಲೇಖಕರಾಗಿ, ವೈದ್ಯಕೀಯ ಕಾರ್ಯಾಗಾರ ಸಮಾವೇಶಗಳ ನಿರೂಪಕ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರಾಗಿ, ಎಲ್ಲಕ್ಕಿಂತಲೂ ಮಿಗಿಲಾಗಿ ಶಸ್ತ್ರ ಚಿಕಿತ್ಸಕರಾಗಿ ಗುರುತಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಿರುವಂತೆಯೇ ಪಾರಮಾರ್ಥಿಕ ಜಗತ್ತಿನಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಇವರು ಚಿರಪರಿಚಯರಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ದೇಶ ವಿದೇಶಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಸಾರವಾಗಿ ಅಸಂಖ್ಯಾತ ಜನರನ್ನು ತಲುಪುತ್ತಿರುವ ಪರಮ ವೇದಾಂತ ಆಧ್ಯಾತ್ಮ ತರಗತಿಗಳ ಪ್ರಮುಖ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸಕರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಬರಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರವಿಶಂಕರ್ ಅವರು. ದಕ್ಷಿಣಾಮೂರ್ತಿ ಧ್ಯಾನ ಶ್ಲೋಕದ ಮಾತುಗಳು ಅನ್ವಯವಾಗುವಂತಹ ಈ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಇವರು. ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಎತ್ತರಕ್ಕೆ ಬೆಳೆದಿದ್ದರೂ ಸರಳ ಸಜ್ಜನಿಕೆಯ ಸಾಕಾರ ಮೂರ್ತಿ. ಬಲು ನಮ್ರತೆಯ ಸ್ವಭಾವ ಇವರದು. ಪರಿತ್ಯಾಗದ ಅಂದರೆ ರೆನನ್ಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ವೈದ್ಯಕೀಯವಾಗಿ, ವೈಜ್ಞಾನಿಕವಾಗಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಪಾರಮಾರ್ಥಿಕವಾಗಿ ವಿಶ್ಲೇಷಿಸಬಲ್ಲ ಇವರು ಏನು ಹೇಳುತ್ತಾರೆ ಎಂದು ಅವರಿಂದಲೇ ಕೇಳೋಣ, ಕೇಳಿ ಆನಂದಿಸೋಣ.
ಈಗ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ನಾನು ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥ ಸೇವಾ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಮತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸ್ತಾ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀರಿ. ನಮಗೂ ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸ್ತಾ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಆರಂಭಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ವಿನಂತಿಸ್ತೇನೆ.
I feel it immensely a matter of pride for being a part of Ramatheertha Seva Foundation, Param Vedanta, and being amongst you to share some thoughts about this topic, renunciation. My sincere pranams and respects to Sri Raghavendra Shenoy ji, Guruji, who has given me this opportunity to share our thoughts. And to each one of you who is here, my greetings. Sincere respects to Srimati Induji for giving me projecting me in such a flowery way. I presume I can do a wee bit of what you have said. Renunciation with the medical aspect is beyond the scope of today's talk. However, since you have mentioned it, I would like to say that over years, the enthusiasm to try new surgeries, I said the word try, gradually comes down because we tend to mature in our minds. And having said that, when we would do surgeries in our younger days, the enthusiasm was to try new surgeries, new techniques, new skills. But over a period of time, as we mature with experience and wisdom, I'm sure we all realize that maybe some of them was premature maybe some of them was not required, or for that matter, maybe we have not really done much for the patients by doing a surgical procedure. So this is a disclaimer for the renunciation in the medical world. Now coming to the topic of today's discussion, all of us know this picture. He is Alexander the Great. And the reason why he became great is because from the age of 16, he started going to conquer the rest of the world. And as he did it every day and he conquered the whole thing, he developed a huge empire. And that's why he was called Alexander the Great. Look at the empire he has, almost reaching up to the Indian subcontinent. And this was BC, 322, 326 in that time. But then you also know that I have put this word, the great, in inverted commas. So some people said, the wise people, Alexander was the great fool. And when they said that, they meant, after all, what did he do? He got up in the morning, thought of a dream to get the empire, went on killing hordes of people. He got the empire all right, but what did he do? So they said he was Alexander the Great Fool. Then he came to the subcontinent. And while he was trying to go into the Indian subcontinent, somebody told him that there are people who here in the subcontinent who can give you immortality. What else would a man want? The entire world plus immortality. So he wanted to meet those people. And those people were the rishis and sannyasis of those days. He wanted them to come to him. He said, I'm going to bring those guys to me. And those people refused to budge. Those people were the Dandamis, as the Greek would call them, or the Dandi Swamis as they were known, or the Ekadanda Sannyasis as we know them today, as early as the 4th century. So the Ekadanda Sannyasis were there even in the 4th century. And Alexander has had a discussion with them. This is recorded. And these Dandi Swamis were philosophers. They were also given a term called as gymnosophists, and we'll come to that. And Alexander had no option but to go to the woods to meet them in the woods of Taxashila. So this is Alexander, and these are those Ekadandi Swamis who had hardly any clothes, didn't look for food. But the man with all the diamonds and the empire with him did not look as happy as these Dandi Swamis who had hardly anything with them. They were under the sun and with complete bliss on their mind. This was a stark difference between Alexander the Great and the Dandi Swamis. And the reason was quite obvious as we go by. So Alexander wanted to know what to do with them, how to go about it. And he wanted the secret of these people. He said, I'll give you the whole empire, but you must come to Greece. These people said, I'm not going to move. He said, I'm going to kill you with the sword. He said, you can kill this body, but you can't kill the Atma in me. And that was the essence of those Dandi Swamis. This is where Swami Ramatheertha has discussed about Alexander the Great in his book on renunciation, in his topic on renunciation. And he says, those Dandi Swamis had no fear. They had no temptation of the great empire and all the Vajra and Vayurya of the great empire. Those were the men of renunciation. Those Dandi Swamis were the men of renunciation. And that is how we would begin this topic of renunciation. Now, we have all gone through these various stages of our life. When we are children, we have a lot of toys to play. And as we get a bicycle, we do away with those small toys. And as we grow old and we have a nice car to drive, we do away with the bicycle. But when you get into the power of knowledge, we know that knowledge is power. We do away with all these materialistic things. For that matter, lots of us have slept with small dogs or toys or teddy bears. There are times when adults continue to sleep with a teddy bear. And that teddy bear is a baggage. That teddy bear is the baggage of our past, the thoughts of our past, the problems of our past, the various goods and the bads of our past continues to be so big that the teddy bear is bigger than the person lying there. This knowledge, which is our power, is to grow over this baggage. I was talking to a young data scientist, and he is in the New York, New Jersey area, Karthik. And this gentleman, when I was discussing with him about renunciation, he said there's lots of consumerism in the US, and people are trying to move away from it. And then he told me there's a very interesting concept that is developed in the US now, and that is known as tidying up with Mary Kondo. She's a Japanese, and she's an organization consultant. Now, when we have lots of things in our house, we don't know what to do. We give it away to people. We give it away only when we know that we don't want it. We don't give it away when we realize that they want it. Anyway, we want to give them away. Now look at this. She is tidying up with toddlers. She's downsizing the almaras. She is breaking free from a mountain of stuff. That is her profession. And she is big. She is big in the United States. She is teaching material renunciation, how to do away with all the material that you have accumulated. And there is material consumerism. So the topic of today is, what exactly is this renunciation? Let us see how we go about it. Nothing better than Bhagavad Gita and Sri Krishna's teachings to understand it. All of you know it. I would just highlight it. We go to the 5th chapter, Karma Sannyasa Yoga. And there are two paths that all of us have. Either we get married and get into Grahastha, let alone those unmarried, but there are people who want to go into Sannyasa. So there is a Pravritti Marga where there is a lot of activity, and we are supposed to do the Pancha Mahayajna. We of course have some sort of security, and with that security we feel comfortable. But then there is also the Nivritti Marga where they go into seclusion, less social responsibilities, they have no security, and that's the sannyasa. These are two paths. But there are also two sadhanas. The two sadhanas are Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. We have a choice of the path. We have no choice of the Karma Yoga or the Jnana Yoga. They have to be done in tandem, together, not one separate from the other. So the third verse of the same chapter very clearly highlights Jneyaha sa nitya sannyasi na dveshti na kangshati. And that is the highlight. We are all in our family-hoods, in our society, but over a period of time, we have put everything into two big baskets. We like something, we don't like something. For example, I like this dress and I don't like this dress. I like this food, I don't like the other food. For that matter, I like this man and I don't like that other man. Or I don't like this situation, but I would like to have that situation. Everything is two big baskets. This is attachment and not liking things. Dvesha, ragaha and dvesha. And this intelligent householder who can live in samsara without getting worked up with this raga dvesha is the intelligent householder who is a nitya sannyasi. So we have all these pairs of dvandvas, likes and dislikes, the heat and cold. We have to grow over it. So those dvandvas, those pairs of opposites, anger, all of them have to be done away with as a part of our sadhana. So if you look at this sadhana dvayam, the two of them, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, both the Grihastha and the Sannyasa, they have to do Karma Yoga. There's no way out. When we do karma, we have some phala out of it. And based on that, we have our karma phala. But whether he is a sannyasi or whether he is in a grahastha, the swadharma cannot be avoided. So if I'm a doctor, I must practice. It is by choice that we have become a doctor. Or if I'm an engineer, it is by choice that you have chosen that branch. Or somebody has been an engineer and switches over to some other profession. That is by choice. And that is your nature to do it. And having done that, that swadharma is responsible. We will take it a little further. If I'm a husband, I need to have that swadharma. If I'm a father, I have to have that swadharma. If I am a teacher in a medical institution, though I'm a doctor, I must practice that swadharma. Why, for that matter, if I have to take care of the cleaning of the house, it is my swadharma because I'm a grahastha. So there is no way we can avoid our own dharma based on our attitude and our nature, the three natures that we have, the three kinds of gunas, and the combination of those gunas almost decides our swadharma. We are not discussing about swadharma with reference to the various groups in our society. But the person who does all these activities as Ishvara Arpana and takes away whatever you get as Prasada Bhava is a Yoga Yuktaha. This personality transformation of thought process while we do the job is labeled as a Vishuddhatma. And a person who has this thought process of I do all activities as a various role that I play, but I don't try to get anything out of it, is a person who is on the path of Jnana Yoga, and he is a Jnana Yoga Yukta. He is now ready for Jnana Yoga. So Jnana Yoga is what he comes to. Yuktaha karma phalam tyaktva shanti mapnoti naishtika. So only when there is abandonment of attachments to the fruits of all these actions, he is a yuktaha. And ayuktaha is one kamakarena phale, worried about the future, worried about I do this action and what am I going to get out of it? Or if I help somebody, how is that help? Isme mera kya hai? What do I get out of this? Why should I do it if I don't get something out of it? That person is a karmi versus a person who is not doing anything for the sake of getting anything, but he does everything with Isharapana and Prasad Buddhi, who is a karma yogi. So there's a difference between a karmi and a karma yogi. So we can decide when we think back into what bracket we fall and how to transform ourselves. Sarva karmani manasa sannyasaste sukham vashi. Renunciation of all this action with this knowledge of Prasada Buddhi and Ishwarapana is something which comes when we understand that I am not doing it. So it is discovering the higher I. So if we have a little discrimination, a viveka, that I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am not this intellect, there's something which is deep in me, which is creating this awareness, and we avoid getting attached to this body-mind complex, then we do renunciation of all actions with that knowledge. So Jnana Yoga, inner renunciation, detachment, independence, and realizing that these actions are done by the body-mind complex, realizing that I, the higher consciousness, is akarta atma. As Adi Shankar would say, continue to do all the actions in my presence. And that my is that consciousness principle. In the 7th verse of the same chapter, Yoga Yuktaha Vishuddhatma Vijitatma Jitendriyaha is a clear understanding of the Karma Yoga sadhana. It explains that with devotion, while you do Karma Yoga, with a purity of mind, you are into Karma Yoga. And the next line of the same verse, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutanam Kurvannapi na lipyate. When you have mastered all your senses, all the 5 senses, not understanding that the body is doing it, clearly understanding that it is being done and I am only an observer. With this knowledge of the self, all the actions done, those actions you become akarta, abhokta. So what does it mean? You're doing the action. We are living in life. We are interacting with everybody. But our thought process while we do that action is responsible for what we reap as a karta or what we don't reap as a abhokta. Understanding these sadhana dvayam brings us to nishkama karma. Do your actions, don't get into all the bondage of what I will get out of it. And if we have understood that there is something beyond the mind, beyond the intellect, something which is a chittaha, all these such actions are responsible for chitta shuddhi, clearance of what exists in the chitta. And what exists in the chitta is actions that we do now, actions that we have done in the past, as well as all those actions of our past janmas, which is in the subtle body of our mind. So all that is responsible for how we are doing our actions today. So if we clear that muck, we are going to get better. So chitta shuddhi happens with karma yoga, with this thought process. Abhimana varjita. Don't have that ego that I am doing it. The body mind complex is doing it. And we must have no identification with that. Ultimately, if you look at this, we have moved over now from material renunciation to mental renunciation or manasa sannyasa. Now, this is a very interesting verse. Na kartrutvam na karmani lokasya srujati prabhu. The word prabhu is interesting. Na karma phala sanyogam swabhavastu pravartate. I will explain this a little more so that we understand the higher I. An iron does not attract those iron filings or nails. The moment it is magnetized, it attracts it. So now it has got the nature of magnetism. Till that time, it was just a piece of iron. So kartatvam, karmani, and karma phala samyoga is doership. Then there is an object in this creation for which you do something, and there is a relationship, karta and bhokta. But all activities are being done according to our swabhava. There is electricity, and it's in the wire. We don't see it. We don't even experience it because we don't have to touch it. It's insulated. But the swabhava of the television is to show a picture and give you all the sounds. And the swabhava of the fan is to give a breeze. Exactly the same way, based on our swabhavas, based on our gunas, the rajotama sattva gunas, we keep doing our actions. But the Prabhu, the one which is responsible for highlighting these persons, highlighting all these actions to happen, is that consciousness principle, which is called as the Atma. Light is the same. In the presence of light, somebody is doing a robbery. In the presence of the same light, there is a sannyasi who is sitting and doing his puja and meditation. Is the magnet a problem? Is the electricity a problem? Or is the Atma a problem for the other activities that have been done? So Atma is not responsible for the robbery. Atma is not responsible for the dhyana or the puja. Magnetism is not responsible for the iron being together. Electricity is not responsible for the breeze or the TV, but it's only there as an observer and doing activities done by those instruments. So we come to the stages of sadhana, having understood that there is something higher than this body-mind complex. Tad buddhaya, tad parayanam, tadatma, tannishtaha is the first line of this verse 17. And the explanation is, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of that consciousness principle is tad buddhaya. To have that as our ultimate goal, to understand it, it's tat parayana. To identify with that is the Atma, that is the tadatmanaha. And if that becomes our practice on a daily basis, if that is understood and we try to live it or inculcate it on a daily basis while we continue to do all our activities, it is our nishtha, it is our practice, it is our nididhyasana. And what does it give us? Na punaravrittihi. There's no way that you're going to come back into this samsara. It is like moksha. And what is the phalam of this sadhana? Samadarshanaha. Whatever be the situation in our daily living, daily activities, we don't try to have those ragadvesha, we don't have those likes and dislikes. You are a pandita and you are samadarshana, you watch it. You don't overreact. At the same time, a muda is a dull man, a sammuda is an extremely dull man, you become a asammuda. So the person becomes a sharp intellect. And such a person who understands it becomes a Brahmavit. The one who knows Brahman becomes Brahman. And the one who knows Brahman becomes a Brahma Bhutaha while you are here and now. You can understand it and live it while we are here. Or for that matter, if the understanding has been a little delayed, it is also possible to become Brahma Nirvanam post death. We go to the Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana Karma Pada Tyagaha in the 12th verse of Dhyana Yoga chapter, where if you do meditation without the knowledge of meditation, it is just abhyasa. While we have this knowledge, but we are not into meditation, it is just information, jnanam. But when you have meditation and have this knowledge and practice it, it is dhyana. And if you dedicate this understanding to the Lord, it is Ishvara Prasada. And that is Karma Phala Tyaga. So right from the Karma Sannyasa Yoga, even up to the 12th chapter, Bhagwan Krishna is telling Arjuna, and through Arjuna to all of us, that Tyaga, renunciation, is a part of whatever is happening and whatever one should practice. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, in the 3rd chapter, Vibhuti Pada, there is a verse which describes renunciation. It's a very small sutra. Tadvairagyadapi, it starts. And the essence is discernment of Buddhi and Purusha brings mastery over all. There is an explanation to it, and the explanation remains only when we are beyond the body-mind complex, only when we understand what is Purusha, and our mind is clearly having that discrimination, we get into Vairagya. There are 2 monks, and both of them are supposed to cross this river, but by the evening when they come, the river has swelled. One has a little money with him, and the other's pocket is empty. 2 friends, 2 monks. Now the one who has got the money says, I see a boat, so I think I will ask the boatman whether he can transport us to the other side. And he says, I'm so lucky that I have some money with me. The other friend who has no money with him, he says, I know that I don't have any money, but I am also aware that if I have renunciation of that level, being a monk, I don't need to carry money. If I have renunciation to that level, I am certain that I have peace, I don't have to bother about that money, and the desire to cross will be fructified. Swami Rama explains this little anecdote to clearly say, being a monk and having a little possession and trying to have security out of that little money and feeling happy that it is because of that money that I can cross the river, and feeling proud at that time that you did not have it, I have that money, so both of us are able to cross, is not renunciation for a monk. What a simple little anecdote that Swami Rama has brought out to highlight renunciation for a monk. This is a lady, and she was taking care of a child. And the child grows, she became old. Over a period of time, she got a grandchild. Now she's become a grandmother. She's got the so-called promotion. She was thinking that once I have the family settled, I want to leave the whole family. I want to go to Vrindavana. I want to have only Sri Krishna, and I want to do puja to Sri Krishna and just be there. I don't want anything. She wanted to renunciate her family, her belongings, her people, and everything. Now comes the problem. She's so depressed. She has a grandchild. She doesn't want to play. She doesn't want to take care of them. She says, I don't want this. I want to go to Krishna in Vrindavan, leave the family. comes in a wise man who says, that Krishna who is sitting in Vrindavan, look at that child as Krishna. Take care of the child as the Lord. Change your attitude. Vishuddhatma, transform your mind and see the difference. And so, renunciation is not asceticism. Don't run away from society. Don't run away from people and responsibilities. Renunciation is divinization. So you have to divinize your situation. You must look at it from a different angle. And when that happens, you realize that you're not giving up people and things and persons and doing away from all the activities that you're doing. You're not giving up personal relationships. They're all needed for our society, most of us being grahasthas. But you realize divinity in every human being. And that is nothing other than Vishwarupa Darshana, part of Vishwarupa Darshana. This is another little story highlighted by Swami Rama in his lovely parables, which is worth reading again and again, which is typically practical Vedanta. I must inform you and highlight this beautiful mantra from the Upanishads. I would like to play it for a few seconds, if it's possible, just for us to hear it. Viraja mantra. Viraja means getting rid of our tamogunas and rajogunas, particularly the rajogunas. So this is typically a mantra which is recited for people who want to do away with all the activities that we have in our mind, all the so-called muck in our mind. In fact, there is a very nice slide which I wish I could have put, but there is a slide of a body, a brain, and somebody cleaning the brain with a broom, a cartoon. You want to do away, you want to clean up your mind, the muck in our mind. So Viraja mantra is supposed to be something to clean up our past, to do chitta shuddhi, particularly for the sannyasas. But it's very beautiful to listen to. Let's look at the meanings later on, sometime when you have time. And you could probably just listen to it for a few minutes. The melody is good. The wordings are great. Bhuya sagyam swaha. Jyotiraham viraja vipatma bhuya sakya swaha. Shirapani pada prano. Jyotiraham viraja vipatma bhuya sakya swaha. Just to highlight that in this Viraja mantra, it's an oblation. You are doing swaha. You are doing everything away to the Lord, to the fire, and saying, Idanna mama, this is not mine. And what are the things that is being discussed here? Oblation is to all the vital forces, the prana, the apana, vyana, udana, the life forces itself you want to do away. The speech, the mind, the eyes, the intellect, the thoughts, everything you want to do away. The hands and the feet and all the organs of action you want to do away. Everything, including the mind, the intellect. So this is a very beautiful mantra which is in the Upanishads, highlighting how we can renunciate our own minds and our thought process and be away from our body-mind complex. Back to what Srimati Induji said in her talk, that renunciation continues from Karma Sannyasa Yoga right up to the 18th chapter. Arjuna has been there with Sri Krishna, and still he is not clear of what renunciation is. And he asks this question right at the beginning of the 18th chapter. And he wants to know what is the difference between sannyasa and tyaga. He's still messed up. There's no definite idea about what is to be done. Because he's on the warfield and Krishna is telling him to do his swadharma, get up and fight, that is your dharma. But he is still discussing about what is sannyasa. He wants to run away. He wants to run away from the problems of the war and killing his own people who are his own teachers and grandfather and his cousins. But that was not his swadharma as a kshatriya. Where is the question of renunciation then? So he thought, if I go into sannyasa, that's my renunciation. Sri Krishna in the 18th chapter continues to say that what is sannyasa is renunciation of desire-born action. So it is not running away from society and people and places, but an action which is done with a desire. A desire-born action, if you renunciate, that is sannyasa. And he continues to explain that if you do away with the result of action, that is tyaga. So there is a very subtle difference between the two. And if you read it again, you will understand that desire-born action, you have not done the action yet, but there's a desire that I'm going to do this action, I'm going to get something out of this. For example, if I say, I'm going to do this surgery, I'm going to get this money out of it. That's a desire-born action. That's where we get into samsara. But if I say, I'm doing this because that is my swadharma, with the intention of healing this person, I don't bother about what is the finances involved. The aim is only to help this person get better and get back to feet. That is sannyasa. Exactly the same way, if I look at the results, that out of this, I'm going to get pride. I have done a great job. They are going to appreciate me. This man is going to come and give me a great gift because I'm not going to charge him more. There is a result of that action. So we have to have a bridge, a dam to obstruct our thoughts before the action is done and after the action is done. This is just an example because of our profession, but we can extrapolate it to all our day-to-day activities. So that is the difference between sannyasa and tyaga. And so in the same chapter, in the 12th verse, Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, and he gives this verdict. He says, this is my clear understanding that sannyasa is the same as tyaga, which is the same as karma yoga. So he is highlighting that even after doing karma yoga, dhyana, understanding with jnanam, what is the knowledge of the atma anatma viveka, in spite of having all this, do not forget your karma yoga. We have to do our karma yoga. Renunciation is not running away from activities. We must continue to do all that we are doing, but with a shift in our thought process. Let us now quickly see of what is this renunciation in the Upanishads. Nachiketa, as you know, has gone to Yamadharma Raja. And Yamadharma Raja tells him, boss, I'll give you everything. Don't ask me this question of what is jnanam and what is beyond death. You take the whole world, I'll give you so many things. Nachiketa uses this word swabhava, and that he says, everything that you are telling me has got a short lifespan. Even Lord Brahma has got a fixed lifespan. None of this is going to touch me. I am looking only at that ultimate jnanam. And this has been explained by Adi Shankara in his Bhashya. And the essence that comes out is renunciation out of discrimination is ripe renunciation. If you have understood it, and you, like Nachiketa, though he was just 8-year-old, if you have understood it and you have renunciated something, it is ripe renunciation. But when we have lost something, for example, we have not cleared an exam, I don't want to take up the exam anymore. Or you do a running race and you come the 6th, you don't get a medal. I don't want to run anymore. Immature renunciation. So that is the way we have to think about it. Na karmana, na prajaya, dhane, na tyage, naike, na mritatva manashuhu continues in Kaivalya Upanishad, highlighting it is not karma, It is not all the praja that we have, but it is tyaga which gives us amritatva. And this is to reduce possessions, obsessions, relationships. So we have this word called Yogakshema. Yoga is accumulating. We get all the things, and once having got it, you have to look after it. That is Kshema. You have to take care of all those activities. So you have to reduce Yogakshema. We have to reduce, that is only done by Tyaga. So Tyaga is renunciation, not for the sake of giving away what you have, but for the sake of Jnanam, for the sake of knowledge. And that is the only way to get Paramananda. This is what is the highlight of this verse from Kaivalya. One who does renunciation in the form of continuing to do action, but having understood this, that is the word point is inaction, inaction. You're doing it, but you are in inaction. You're really not doing it, but you are doing it. So that word inaction, in action is a karma. Ishavasam sarvam yat kinchit jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena. Renunciation comes in the first word of the Ishavasa Upanishad also. And the highlight is, there is no spatial distance. He says you do away with all your neighbors, don't possess, don't have possessions and so many things. This renunciation of possessionship is what gives rise to happiness. If you look at the fifth Brahmana of the third chapter of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, renunciation is explained as the only way to know Brahman. So there are three words called the Aishanas, the Putraishana, the Vittaishana, and the Lokaishana. You want to have a family, then children, then all the wealth, then the name, the fame, and all these things. And Brihadaranyaka Upanishad very clearly says, Atha Bhikshacharyam Charanti. So some way there has to be a limit to all these activities, and there has to be some sort of mental renunciation. Others, we are continuing to be in samsara. In the Mundaka Upanishad, the third Mundaka, the verse 6, also talks about sannyasa yoga. Vedanta vijnana sunishchitartham sannyasa yoga deda shuddha sattvaha. So unless that renunciation happens, the shuddha sattva, the sattvic guna does not come. And if you don't move from rajoguna to tamoguna to sattvic guna, we are still in samsara. Only when there's more of sattva guna, we are likely to have better chitta shuddhi to understand the atma anatma viveka. Lord Rama, just about to be coronated. What a happy moment it was. And then he had all this drama that goes on there, and he happily went away from all that kingdom with his family, not asking them to come, but he went away and they all followed. It was renunciation of the kingdom. In Ramayana, there is a lot mentioned about renunciation. With this thought, he never had one bit. If you look at him as a Maryada Purusha, not the Rama Tattva, not as the King Rama, he renunciated everything just for the sense of happiness. If you look at him as a man. So what is the take home that we get out of all this talk? We have to work on our minds for mental renunciation. It is essential to have mental renunciation for Jnana Yogyata, to be able to get Jnana Yoga. Unless we have renunciation in our minds, in our own minds, we will not be on the path of Jnana Yogyata. So it is essential for Jnana Prapti. That's the next step. As soon as you have renunciation, there are so many things just happening. The understanding gets so clear that it is a revelation by itself. So it is more to do with doing away. It is not gaining new knowledge by reading books or going to satsangs. They are all methods of clearing our so-called muck in our mind. It is more of doing away. It is not gaining knowledge. Sorry. And hence, we must work on our ragadvesha. Even as grihasthas, for that matter, even sannyasis, they keep working on their ragadvesha, till that chitta shuddhi happens, the jnana nishtha does not happen. And therefore, we must sculpture our mind. When there is a huge boulder of marble and the sculptor is sitting there, he has a fair vision that he is going to sculpt away, take away bits and bits and bits, and create an idol of Krishna or Rama. But if you look at it the other way, Rama or Krishna was already existing in that boulder. All that he did was do away with all those other parts of the things. So could he have really created Rama or Krishna? So if he has imagined something in his mind, only then he can create it. If you have imagined some raga, you can sing it. You just can't get it otherwise. If you have imagined what a surgical procedure is, then only you can do it. So there has to be a clear understanding. So exactly the same way, we must sculpture our own minds, do away with all the raga, dvesha, and so much of other activities that only we are aware. We know what is happening in our minds. We don't have to bother about what is happening in others' minds, because we are our own witness to our own minds. So if we have understood this and we work on our minds and we go towards mental renunciation, I think the purpose of this talk is served. Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah. Sarve Santu Niramaya. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kachit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thanks for your time and thanks for your patient listening.
ಒಂದೇ ಮೈಕಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳೋದು, 2-3 ಮೈಕ್ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ. ಎನಿವೆ, ಸೊ ರಿನನ್ಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಹೊಸ ಶಬ್ದ ಇದು, ಏನು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ. ತ್ಯಾಗ ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಏನು, ಸನ್ಯಾಸ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಇದನ್ನ ತುಂಬಾ ಸುಲಭವಾಗಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗೋ ತರ ಕ್ಲಿಷ್ಟವಾದಂಥ ವಿಚಾರ, ಆದ್ರೆ ಸುಲಭವಾಗಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗೋ ತರ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕೆಲವು ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತಿನ ಹಾಗೂ ಭಗವದ್ಗೀತೆಯ ಶ್ಲೋಕಗಳ ಮೂಲಕ ನಮ್ಗೆ ವಿವರಿಸಿದ್ರು. ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥರ ಕೆಲವು ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನು ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ತಂದ್ರು. ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥರು, ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥರ ವಿಚಾರ, ಹಿ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಎಸ್ ಎ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ವೇದಾಂತಿನ್. ಕಥೆಗಳ ಮೂಲಕವೇ ವೇದಾಂತವನ್ನ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯರಿಗೆ ತಲುಪಿಸಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. ಅವರು ಹುಟ್ಟುವಾಗಿನಿಂದ ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಜೀವನದ ಕೊನೆಯವರೆಗೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದರ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದನ್ನು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಮಗು ಇದ್ದಾಗ ತಾಯಿಯ ಎದೆ ಹಾಲಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಸುಖವನ್ನು ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇರತ್ತೆ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಆಟಿಕೆಯ ಮೇಲೆ ಅದು ಮರ್ತು ಹೋಗತ್ತೆ. ಹೀಗೆ ಯೌವನಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಹಾಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾ 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 ನಾನು ಯಾವ್ದ್ರಲ್ಲಿದ್ದು ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಮರ್ತು ನಾವು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೇವೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸುಖ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಹೊರಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಒಳಗಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಅವರು ಅನೇಕ ಕಥೆಗಳ ಮೂಲಕ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಿದ್ದಲ್ಲ. ಆ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅನೇಕ ಕಥೆಗಳ ಮೂಲಕ ನಮಗೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಕೆಲವು ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗಳ ಮೂಲಕ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರವಿಶಂಕರ್ ಅವರು ನಮ್ಗೆ ತ್ಯಾಗ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ನಾವು ತ್ಯಾಗ ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅದನ್ನ ತಿನ್ನೋದ್ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಮುಗ್ದೋಯ್ತು, ಅಥವಾ ಏನು ನಾನು ಪರ್ಚೇಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಮುಗ್ದೋಯ್ತು, ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ಇದಕ್ಕೂ ಏನೂ ಸಂಬಂಧವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಇವತ್ತು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತು. ಅದು ಮನಸ್ಸಿನ ಕ್ರಿಯೆ, ಮನಸ್ಸಿನ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ತುಂಬಾ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗೋ ತರ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಇದು ಒಂದು ಸಲ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾಲದು, ಪ್ರಾಯಶಃ ಇದು ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಪ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಎಲ್ರು ಇದನ್ನ ಕೇಳಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕೇಳಿ. ಈ ತರ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನ ಪದೇ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಲ ಕೇಳ್ತೀವೋ ಅಷ್ಟು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಮನಗಟ್ಟಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಮನದಟ್ಟಾಗಿರೋ ವಿಷಯ ನಮ್ಮೊಳಗೆ ಇಳಿಬೇಕು, ಮತ್ತದನ್ನು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿಕಾಲಿಟಿಗೆ ತರಬೇಕು. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ತುಂಬಾ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನಡೆಸಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇಡೀ ದಿವಸ ಬ್ಯುಸಿ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಆದ್ರೂ ಇಂತಹ ವಿಷಯಗಳಿಗೂ ಸಮಯ ಕೊಡುವಷ್ಟು ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಸಮಯ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಯಾವತ್ತು ನೆನ್ಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ತಿಮ್ಮಪ್ಪ ಹೆಗಡೆ ಅವರು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತೇ ಇದೆ. ಅವರು ವೇದಾಂತದ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪ್ರಚಾರ ಮಾಡೋ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ ಅನೇಕರನ್ನು ಜೋಡಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅನೇಕ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ಗಳನ್ನೇ ಜೋಡಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ಗಳದ ಒಂದು ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇನೆ ಇದೇ ಜಾಗದ ನನ್ನ ನೆನಪಿಗೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಅದು ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ವೇದಾಂತದ ಒಂದು ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಈಗಲೂ ಅದು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಯೋಗ ಮಾಡೋರು ಅಥವಾ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ವೇದಾಂತ ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಇದು ಈಗಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ ಗೊಡ್ಡು ಪುರಾಣ ಇದು 60 ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಅದೇ ತಪ್ಪು. ವೇದಾಂತ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಏನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಲೈಫ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ನಾವು ಕಲಿಬೇಕು, ಹೇಗೆ ಚಾಲೆಂಜಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಫೇಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅನ್ನೋದು ತುಂಬಾ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅನೇಕ ವಿಚಾರಗಳು ಸಿಗತ್ತೆ. ಅಂತಃಶಕ್ತಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಇದನ್ನ ನಾನು ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಈಗ ಮುಂದೆ ನಾವು ಬರುವ ದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ತರ ಅನೇಕ ವಿಚಾರಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಲ್ಗೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಹಾಗೆ ವಿಚಾರವನ್ನ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಲನೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಈ ತರ ವಿಚಾರ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಪಾಲನೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದೇ ಸಾರ್ಥಕ ಅಂತ ನನಗನ್ಸತ್ತೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ಈ ಸುಂದರವಾದ ಸಂಜೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಪರಿತ್ಯಾಗದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರವಿಶಂಕರ್ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥ ಸೇವಾ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಮತ್ತು ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಅನಂತ ವಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಮತ್ತು ಅವರಿಗೆ ಶ್ರೀಯುತ ದ್ವಾರಕಾನಾಥ್ ಅವರು ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥ ಸೇವಾ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ನ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟಿಗಳಲ್ಲೊಬ್ರು, ರಿಟೈರ್ಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕರು, ನಮ್ಮ ಸಣ್ಣ ನೆನಪಿನ ಒಂದು ಸೊ ಬಂದಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ತಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಾನು ವಂದಿಸ್ತಾ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಮುಗಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಪ್ರಸಾದ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಇದೆ. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಪ್ರಸಾದ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಹಾಗೆ ಪ್ರತಿ ತಿಂಗಳು ಈ ತರ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಾದ್ರೆ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದ. ಹಾಗೆ ಅವರ ಕುಟುಂಬ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಅವರಿಗೂ ನಾನು ಧನ್ಯವಾದ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ.